Hi, I'm Murray Feldman, and welcome to Easy Money, an extension of the public television documentary When I'm 65. Today's program focuses on something every single one of us is at risk for: financial fraud. It's lurking around every corner, online and in person, and it can hit you when you least expect it. But there is something that can help protect us all from financial fraud, and that's education. Staying up to date and informed on the latest scams can help you protect your finances and, more importantly, your future. So join me and our expert guests as we show you just how easy it can be to take control of your finances and empower yourself. Financial fraud comes in many forms, and in this digital age, it's more prevalent than ever. It could be something as simple as an email alerting you that you have unclaimed rewards, or as innocent as seeking an appliance repair. You can be scammed in ways that you never thought possible. So it's important to stay informed and up to date on the very latest scam alerts. And that's why we bring in Melanie Duquesnel, President and CEO of the Better Business Bureau in Eastern Michigan. Melanie, thanks for being with us today on Easy Money.
Thanks for having us.
You've been with the Better Business Bureau for nearly 10 years. I'm sure in that time you have seen a lot of scams, a lot of people hurt, a lot of people also arrested. What types of things should we be aware of? What are some of the biggest, most important scams that people need to know about?
Well, let's first start with most people don't realize that 1 in 4 people in the U.S. have been scammed.
Wow.
Go figure. But those people don't always come to us and tell us that they've been scammed because they're embarrassed. I would have to answer your question directly, I'd have to say that it has to be imposter scams. They can come through robocalls, they can come through telephone calls, they can come through texts. But at the end of the day, they're trying to say there's somebody of authority that they need you to get you the money immediately.
And that, the Federal Trade Commission tells us, is the #1 scam that they investigate. And they say in the last year, $320 million was taken from innocent people just because they picked up the phone. Somebody said, hey, I'm the authority, maybe I'm the police, maybe I'm the IRS, you owe me money, and I'm gonna get you.
Well, and the Federal Trade Commission also says that all scams that have been self-reported, that's a big figure here, is $1.5 billion.
Wow, that is a big figure. So we hear about it all the time. What happens when we realize I've been taken, I've been scammed? What do we do?
Don't hide. Please don't hide. Tell everyone, tell your family, tell your friends, tell those that in law enforcement, because the more they know, the more they can do on your behalf. People fall for these things all the time. You're not stupid. You're not without ability to handle your affairs. They're just really good at their job. So knowing that ahead of time, just recognize, hey, this happened to me, it's okay, I'm gonna go forward and I'm gonna try to get solutions to it. The problem that we're finding though is that a lot of the folks don't take down the necessary information. If it's coming through the phone, remember the phone number, write it down. Remember the time of day. If they gave you their name, also note that as well. And then go through kind of in a very short summary what the call was all about and why you thought it was important to give them your information.
And remember, when you report it, you're not only doing something for yourself and maybe getting a solution somehow, but you're also doing something for the next person down the line that may be called. Once they catch the bad guys, they're not going to do it again to somebody else.
Yes, and thankfully we're starting to see some solutions or some results to that. We've caught a call center in India. We've caught actually some folks in San Diego, California, that have been trying to dupe people out of their money through IRS imposter scams, romance scams, even law enforcement coming because they supposedly have a warrant for their arrest.
So what about avoiding scams altogether?
Avoiding scams altogether, have a script already prepared of how to say no. Don't feel challenged by hanging up the phone if you feel like they're really getting into your business. They're going to threaten, they're going to prey on your emotions. So if you know that in advance and you can shut that emotional response down, more than likely you're going to save yourself agony and money.
There are so many people who have told me that they have been approached by what appears to be a scam, and they say, what do you think of this? And I say, it appears to be a scam, stay away from it. And then they begin to argue because they say, well, do you really think it's a bad deal? The point is, they don't want to think, and it's human nature, we don't want to think that it's not real because it sounds so good.
And the sad case in that situation, though, is that they probably already fell for it. They're just trying to justify now why they are okay that they fell for it.
All right, so what group in particular is more susceptible to being a target?
Well, it's interesting. It's millennials, and it's all
Really?
because of the digital age. The Better Business Bureau Institute of Marketplace Trust did a study, and the most likely group of age groups to be defrauded and lose money are millennials. And we're probably going to start to add Gen Zs in there. And then when it comes to the most likely group to lose the most amount of money, sadly, it's seniors. But if you think about it, millennials are brand new to the marketplace. They're starting to buy their first car and their first house, so they don't have a lot of extra cash. Flip side, the seniors have a little bit more under their belt and can fall for bigger fish, if you will.
And also, millennials are out there probably more online than anybody else.
Yes, they believe everything in the digital age, which we need to re-educate. I don't want to say reprogram, but re-educate them.
Oh, good choice of words. Melanie Duquesnel from the Better Business Bureau of Eastern Michigan, thank you so much for being with us
Anytime.
on Easy Money. Your information is invaluable to our viewers. Coming up, protecting your future, how you can ensure that your retirement savings are safe from the scammers. Here's an easy money tip. In this day and age, it's easier than ever to fall victim to a scam via the internet. With smartphones and devices in use 24/7, scammers can gain access to your information with just a few clicks. Here are a few ways that you can protect yourself and your money from the crooks. When you're scrolling through your social media, resist the urge to click on ads offering deals that seem too good to be true. Research the companies you're buying from online to make sure they're legitimate and safe. You should also use multi-factor authentication to secure your logins on every app and every website. This makes it more difficult for the hackers to get into your accounts. Speaking of hackers, make sure you change your password often and make sure they're complex. No birth dates, anniversaries, no pet names. That kind of information can easily be sourced by criminals looking to get into your accounts. And be careful where you click. You might receive an email that looks just like it's coming from your bank, asking you to confirm a suspicious charge or alerting you of an overdraft. If the email is asking you to click on a link, avoid it. Go straight to your bank. Either call them or go to their secure website to check your account and make sure it's safe. Oftentimes, these are phishing emails sent by hackers. Once you click on the link and enter your password, they have your information and they have access to your funds. The most important tip is to protect your information at all costs. Be cautious and always double check before you click. Your retirement savings are your future, and you need to protect them like your life depends upon it, because in a way it does. There are so many things that you can do to make sure that your savings are safe, and we're here to share them with you. Joining me right now, Kirk Cassidy, a fiduciary and financial instructor with a passion for helping people all over the country reach their retirement goals. Kirk, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, Murray.
All right, let's start at the beginning. Make the mistake of trusting the wrong kind of person. Everybody does that. We get a financial professional. We know they're a professional. We know they have qualifications, but they're not the right person for us. There's a difference, isn't there?
Well, I think, Murray, it starts with spending some time to making sure you're working with the right kind of advisor for what you're looking for. Too often, people are working with people without doing background checks, understanding how they're credentialed, whether they're insurance salesmen, fiduciaries, CFPs. What are they specializing in, right? What phase of your life are you in? And try to match up with an advisor who specializes in that phase of your life.
Of course, you also have to know how they're paid as well. And it's a legitimate question. If we ask you that question when we come to your office, you're not offended.
Not at all. In fact, as a fiduciary, I'm required to disclose it, and you should disclose it, right? So part of the challenge today is most people don't know if they're working with someone who's a fiduciary, a broker, or someone who's attempting to wear both hats. And if they're wearing both hats, that means they're collecting the commission and then also charging a fee on that same product they sold you and collected a commission on.
All right, very quickly, a fiduciary means that you are working in my best interests. If you're not a fiduciary, you could be working in your best interest, selling me a product that you make a lot of money on, but only so for me.
Well, so let's dig a little deeper. A fiduciary must do what's in your best interest. They must disclose all conflicts of interest, and they must disclose any and all fees. A broker, on the other hand, has to do what's suitable for you.
All right, so we get the right advisor. We're happy with that. A lot of people think that they can just forget about it. The advisor's going to take care of everything for them, but really investors should keep track of their own money rather than relying 100% on that financial professional.
Murray, I have a strong opinion about this. I think when people are younger, I think they have the ability to do their own research. And really, candidly, I think our industry is a little bit of voodoo, right? I would buy index funds, ETFs, and don't hire an advisor. Just put as much money away. Don't look at a statement for 10 years. Come back 10 years later and you'll be surprised. I think as we get closer to retirement, within 10 years of retirement, now we need to begin to find a fiduciary. And if you're fortunate enough to find the right person, I do believe there's some degree of almost surrendering, allowing your advisor to lead you down the best path. There's a lot of noise.
Lead you down the best
you,
path,
right.
but you know what's going on at the same time.
For sure. You're still in control. You're just going to lend us the reins to lead you, and you can take the reins back whenever you want them.
All right, what about security? Security that we need to remember, not only for ourselves, but that our financial professionals should be employing.
Yeah, I would say that our industry is really loose when it comes to security, and I know the SEC is really pushing on cybersecurity. We are targets. The CPAs, the financial advisor firms are targets for fraudsters. So you want to make sure your advisors are encrypting your emails. Any confidential information about tax returns, social security numbers, statements need to be password protected, encrypted, secure, and make sure that you have a solution to avoid fraud, someone trying to steal your money.
Kirk Cassidy, thank you for that expert advice.
Thank you.
All right, up next, we're going to talk about elder financial abuse. It's a growing industry, sadly, what you can do to prevent it from happening to you. Here's an easy money tip. It may sound surprising, but you should always take caution when donating to charities. Sadly, charity scams are all too common, especially following a high-profile disaster. According to the FBI, the National Center for Disaster Fraud received more than 400 complaints of fraud after Hurricanes Harvey and Irma in 2017. Scammers often pose as charities seeking donations for a great cause, but in reality, they're pocketing your hard-earned money. You can protect yourself by doing your research. Donate to charities that you know and trust. Remember, most legitimate organizations have a .org website, not a .com. Search the charity's name online, plus the words complaint, review, rating, or scam to see if anything fishy comes up. Make your contributions directly through the charity rather than through an intermediary person who may be pocketing the money. Always pay by credit card or check, and check your statements closely to make sure you're only charged for the amount you agree to. If you even have to question whether or not the charity is legitimate, consider giving your money to a different, more trustworthy charity. There are hundreds of honest organizations out there that will use your generous donation wisely. Elder financial abuse. It is a sad but all too common reality for so many families. 1 in 5 adults over the age of 65 is reportedly victimized, resulting in more than $36 billion lost to scammers every single year. And once that money's gone, it's a good chance it's not going to come back. Let us bring back Kirk Cassidy. Kirk, you specialize in this kind of financial education. Why is this issue becoming more and more common?
Murray, I think it's a numbers game. It's pure volume. We have 10,000 baby boomers retiring every single day. More and more people are dependent on their own retirement income, right? They don't have pensions like they used to. So we have a perfect storm. More people responsible to figure out when do I take income from which accounts at what age. How do I know how much to take so that I don't outlive my money? And as a result, we have, and candidly, we have a generation that's done very well financially, maybe a little overconfident, right? And the truth is they really have very little financial literacy as it relates to retirement planning. They may understand accumulating the wealth, but to distribute it and how and when opens themselves up to a lot of victimization. Right?
All right, so elderly people are most likely to be scammed, but they're least likely to report it. Why is that?
Well, I think there's two things. One is the most obvious, right? Cognitively, things begin to change. Research has found the first cognitive ability we begin to lose is mathematics. So they just don't even know what's happening, which is a problem. I think a little less commonly understood is the psychological component to this, where we have an evolution of the relationship between the children and the parents. And the parents almost becoming like the children, they're regressing, and the children becoming the parents. As a result, there's an embarrassment, there's a fear, there's a rebellion, there's a concern that my children are going to take control of my finances away. And if you know anything about of psychology, once you're beginning to lose cognitive ability of anything, you are not voluntarily giving up control over anything.
So what about the people who are most likely to attempt elder fraud?
Yeah, so unfortunately, you're not going to like what I'm going to tell you, but over 50% of those doing the victimization is friends and family, those closest to you, right? Which I do think there's some solutions that we can help prevent that. The less easy to resolve is the industry. Our industry, people pretending to be professionals or just trying to take advantage of those seniors as they get older. Murray, one of the biggest problems people aren't thinking about is when one spouse predeceases the other spouse. Usually we have one spouse that's been responsible for all the finances. Now they die. That surviving spouse is going to have to figure this out on their own. That's a disaster waiting to happen.
And I have seen that happen many, many times from viewers and listeners and all of the questions that are out there in the communities. It's so important to protect ourselves and our aging loved ones. And I ask you the question, how do you do something like that? The answer is probably you have to start early, maybe 10 or 15 years before they're going to need assistance.
I think there's two things we can do. One is something I'm working on with a neuropsychologist to develop some sort of baseline cognitive testing, right? I want to be able to determine early where they are cognitively, so as they age and a spouse is lost and they have to make major financial decisions when they get older, we can retest them to see where they're at cognitively and whether they have the capacity to make this decision. The second, Murray, the second and most important is mapping out your retirement plan. 30 years, when do I take income from which accounts at what age, so I don't outlive my money? A map. When one spouse dies, where does the surviving spouse get income from? If the other spouse dies, where are they going to get their income from? The sad fact is only 4% of retirees have this written plan, only 4%.
And that written plan should also dictate who makes the decisions for you when you can't make the decisions.
Who makes the decision, how much you're going to get from what accounts, how do you reduce taxes, and how do you pass the controls to the next person you want to be in control, so there's no fighting. This is done early, ahead of problems.
And then when there's an issue, it's all written down. You just follow the script, so to speak.
Murray, we spend 8 hours teaching classes in university settings, helping prepare people to do this. And it's never too soon. I mean, within 10 years of retirement, through retirement, you've got to build this plan, map it out, so that when something happens, you know where the traps are.
Thank you for sharing some of your class with us, Kirk Cassidy.
Welcome.
All right, it's such an important topic that people need to stay informed about, and they need to continue to update themselves on. Stay tuned, because coming up, our guests are going to return with some final thoughts on their biggest tips for staying safe and, most importantly, avoiding scams. Here's an easy money tip. Identity theft, it happens all the time, and by the time you realize it, it may be much too late. Here's how you can protect yourself and stay one step ahead of the scammers. Keep a close eye on your credit reports. The 3 major credit reporting bureaus are obligated by law to provide you with 1 free credit report a year at your request. Check for any suspicious activity like unfamiliar accounts. It's a good idea to space the 3 reports apart over the year so that you can check up on your accounts over time. You should also carefully review your statements for your credit card, bank, retirement, brokerage, and other accounts every single month. This can tip you off to fraudulent charges long before the issue ever shows up on your credit report. Be on the lookout for things like unfamiliar charges, multiple small charges from an unknown source, or requests to increase credit limits. Even your health insurance can also be a target. Make sure you check your explanation of benefit statements for treatments you never received. If you notice anything suspicious, consider placing a freeze on your file with the 3 major credit reporting bureaus. The freeze will last until you request a lift, and it'll block anybody from accessing your reports without your permission, making it much more difficult for crooks to open new accounts in your name. If you believe you've been a victim of identity theft, or if your personal information has been lost or exposed, you can visit identitytheft.gov to report it and to recover. Your best defense against scams is education, keeping yourself informed and really up to date on the latest trends in fraud, and that will ensure that you're always one step ahead of the bad guys. Now let's take a look at a clip from economic journalist Knight Kiplinger on the importance of education and why you should make it a priority.
These are times in which consumer education and protection is most needed, but not often heeded, which raises a very heavy issue in the world in which we operate, I as an educating journalist and you as professionals in this field. Really, can government and the industry really put in place enough rules and safeguards to really protect consumers and small investors from a highly creative and nimble and mobile group of people seeking to part them from their pocketbooks? We know that there are not enough rules and tight enough and explicit enough rules in the world to deter determined crooks, and very often the rules are an unnecessary albatross around the necks of honest people. Most importantly, the rules really can't protect people from their own worst instincts of gullibility. This is where education has a great advantage over rulemaking.
I'm back with our expert guest to ask you both one last question based on the clip that we just saw from Knight Kiplinger. What is your biggest piece of advice for people looking to protect themselves from scammers? Melanie?
Education and your ability to say no. Because if you're educated and you hear things and it sounds really good, but you have that little bird in the back of your head going, maybe not, you have to have the guts to say no.
Kirk?
Education, echo what she said, but one additional step, planning, map it out, when, how, why, and make sure that your kids and family are aware early, before there's issues, so they can be involved in the processing of that plan.
And when that plan is put together, it's really part of a bigger financial plan.
It's a comprehensive, holistic plan about when, how, why, what's going to happen when one spouse dies, when the other spouse dies, what you want your children to do so that they don't get victimized, right? It's generational. It then continues down. So the more financial literacy we can provide in education, the further ahead everyone's going to be.
And when we talk about scams, we talk about people that are out there to get us, there are always new ways that they're going to get us. One thing is when, for example, an elderly husband dies, the widow often gets a lot of, and I've seen this happen, a lot of correspondence in the mail from charities saying, quote unquote charities, saying, you know, your husband always used to give to this charity around this time of year. Certainly you want to do that in his memory.
Right, and the sad thing is that charities actually take their donor lists and sell them on the open market. It's not the black market, it's the open market. And it's a line item for some of these charities to make money to support their services. The thing we need to know is what the charities are. So it goes back to the plan. It goes back to knowing what we're investing in, what we give, how we give, when we give. So knowing that ahead of time and having it committed to some kind of a document that the surviving spouse, as we were talking about earlier, can refer to will make it a lot easier for them.
All right, a couple of things here. Number one, spouses should know what each spouse is doing and they should be doing it together.
Absolutely.
As we alluded to before, Kirk, how many people find themselves alone in life and they don't know where their valuable papers are. They don't know what kind of insurance policies they have. In some cases, they don't even know how much money was coming into the household.
They don't, Murray, right? And one spouse will predecease the other. And so commonly with this generation, we have a do-it-yourselfer, one that's doing everything. So that leaves the surviving spouse, if it's not the do-it-yourselfer, very, very vulnerable. So it's not just good enough to show them where things are at, but mapping out what they should be doing and when they should be doing. We have to take it to the next step. Only 4% of retirees are doing this, so we need to start early, build a plan. The plan will evolve. Life events occur. That's the key to finding someone that's competent, qualified to help you with this, right? And just remember, the barrier to entry into our industry is super low. You literally can take a weekend course, take an exam on Monday, and become a financial advisor by Tuesday. So do your homework, do your research, goes back to education.
All right, Kirk Cassidy, Melanie Duquesnel, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great information for us today. In this day and age, it may seem like a scam is out there lurking around every corner. It may be, but with the right advice and the right guidance, you can successfully avoid these scams. And you can protect your money and your investments, and most importantly, your future. Share this valuable information with your loved ones so that they too can learn how to protect themselves and their money and keep it out of the hands of crooks. And make sure that you look out for your aging loved ones, the people who can't defend themselves. They need your help the most. There's a lot more that you can learn about personal finance, and we have more to share about spending and saving and investing, and more topics to help you make the most of your money. Hope you'll visit our website, wi65.org. We're also sociable. You can follow us on Facebook or on Twitter at WI65Project. Tell us what you think. Give us a piece of your mind if you want. But most importantly, ask us your questions. Until next time, I'm Murray Feldman. Thank you for watching Easy Money.